本期视频是新加坡前外长杨荣文近日参加某访谈节目的节选。他谈到美国现在的所作所为正在让美国霸权加速坍塌，美中欧三极之间还需要时间达成默契的平衡，以及看好中国继续作为亚洲乃至世界经济发展的引擎，发挥重要作用。我们看看他是怎么说的吧。
I had a question about the possibilities of a Trump or a Biden administration coming up. And in particular, I've seen it said that Trump was primarily focused on tariffs and trade, where Biden's a bit more focused on his concern of these empire building by Russia and sort of, I think, a somewhat view that China might have territorial ambitions as well. And so between these two leaders, how do you see things, I guess, for the rest of the world and for these U.S.-China tensions?
Well, the Democrats are more globalists. I mean, they express American exceptionalism. They feel that America should be dominant everywhere and its values should prevail everywhere. I don't think they can succeed. Trump is more isolationist. He tells NATO partners, if you don't cough up, it's like your insurance. If you don't pay your premium, the policy is cancelled. NATO won't defend you. I mean, people are in shock when he talks like that. But does it make sense? In a way, he does. Because if I'm an ordinary American, who's paying for all this? Well, if you can print the US dollar, that's okay. But one day, you cannot just print dollar like that, and it'll be a choice between guns and butter. So my money goes to guns or for my butter. There's no question how they will vote. So the key event will be when the primacy of the US dollar breaks. We all know you have to break sometime or other because it's abnormal. If it's 30 years from now, well, let's drink and be merry. But if it's 5 years, well, we've got to calculate, right? Do we know when the cookie will crumble? We don't know. But the way the US is moving is bringing forward that date. I mean, they try to control countries by sanctions. And if you are subject to sanctions, it's no joke. I mean, I have Hong Kong friends. One of them is quite senior in the administration. They say, no, I'm completely beholden to my wife. I can't have a credit card, I don't have a bank account. All my assets are with her, I better be nice to her. So if you're under sanctions, it's no joke. So when they threaten the ICC, you put out an arrest warrant on Netanyahu, will go after you and your family members. A number of US senators have signed that. So of course the ICC has to stand up to it. But I'm quite sure privately, they will say, this is a serious matter. Not just me, but also my entire family. Then how do I operate? But how long can you pursue this cause? And everywhere now, the US will find countries standing up to them. So you can no longer contain Iran. You can't contain North Korea with Russia as a member of the Security Council refusing to vote to continue the surveillance facility on North Korea. So this is the kind of situation we're entering. And it's a bit strange. You know, last night, I do not know whether you read your report this morning. Blinken was in Kiev. And he went to an underground bar, I mean literally underground bar, to strum the guitar and sing Neil Young's Living the Free World. And it's all over the internet now. Why did he do that? I mean, there's war going on around him, you know. I thought it's very strange. Something is happening. So we better be very alert. We're entering a great transition. US-China is part of it. India is part of it. Middle East is part of it. Ukraine and Gaza are certainly a part of it. And one way or another, it will affect us in Southeast Asia. I think we just keep ASEAN united, gives us a lot of buffer. Then however stormy the weather is, however choppy the waters become. If we're rafted together in ASEAN, we can bob up and down and keep dry. But we're entering interesting times.
The next question that we have from the audience is about President Xi's visit to Europe. And I think it ties into the point you were making also about Ukraine. So for Europe, as you mentioned, that economic relationship with China is very important. At the same time, Europe is very sensitive about that Ukraine issue and China's alliance with Russia. How do you see this trip to Europe going, and what do you see that relationship going?
It was his first visit to Europe after COVID, and I followed closely his visit to France, to Serbia, and to Hungary. He was given exceptional welcome in all three countries. When Macron visited China, accompanied him in Guangzhou and talked about his father and what he did in the special economic zone. So this time around, when he went to France, Macron brought him to the Pyrenees, to a little town where Macron used to visit his mother or grandmother, I can't remember, to show an equivalent hospitality. Very dignified, very, very warm. And the French have vast interest in China. The Germans will want the same, and German economic interests, business interests, will want the same. The Italians pull out from One Belt, One Road under American pressure, but bilaterally, they are warming up their relations with China. China's strategy is to build up Europe as a separate pole, to build up the euro as a separate reserve currency in order to have more room in managing their relations with the US. But they know that whatever happens, Europe will always be closer to America than they will be to China because of deep civilizational relations. But some distance between Europe and America is good for China. And if Europe plays this skillfully, Europe can prevent either America or China from being excessive in their behavior. Because if China pushes too much, all Europe needs to do is to shift a bit of weight to America, and China will have to behave. If America pushes too much, they only need to shift a bit of weight to China, and America will have to behave. It's like Tai Chi. Unfortunately, the Europeans are not yet good in Tai Chi. Because the European Union is not a centralized organization. They're divided. And there are no strong leaders today. Macron is probably the strongest, but he's his last term, and French society is fractured. All European societies are fractured. But maybe in time, enough thinkers in Europe will come to the conclusion that they can keep the peace in the world by being more balanced. But this will require first for there to be a ceasefire and some kind of a peace settlement in Ukraine. Because for as long as Ukraine is a raging source of infection, Europe cannot play this balancing role. So it may take another 10, 20 years. And we've got to navigate through this phase.
So, Mr. Yeo, I have another question, and it kind of ties to the theme of our event today. And the question is simply, do you feel that Asia's position as an engine of global growth is diminishing? And to give some context, as an investor, I see lots of opportunities in Asia, lots of businesses that are forming that excite me. But as markets, the Asian markets have underperformed for a considerable period of time. And I do get that feedback from clients that, they're losing confidence in Asia. So the question was just simply, do you see that engine of growth changing and becoming less strong for Asia? How do you think about that engine of growth for Asia?
Oh, I think that's a very sadly mistaken view. I mean, China accounts for a third of global growth. Asia will account for maybe a half of global growth, and it will account for more and more in the coming years. Markets will take time to respond, and partly because of decoupling, and the US telling the funds to downweight China funds. They're playing up India. But India has its own rhythm, and India will take time to develop. It's still early days for India. But the developed markets, the more mature markets will be China and Southeast Asia. And I would not be underweight on them. And if they're oversold now, that becomes an opportunity. But I think it's a very wrong view of the world and ignores basics and fundamentals.